What's up, guys, and welcome back to Real Local People Podcast, where we bring on local people to tell real stories about our area. We are back after a brief hiatus, and we have an awesome guest today, Danny Struck, who is one of our first guests on the podcast, has written a book called Climbing for Gold. He's the longtime wrestling coach at Jeff High, and he has some awesome experiences and a great writer, and we're excited to talk to him, so let's go. I love, by the way, that you were a show choir kid.
That's what people never believe.
Because I did plenty of that back. Having the choir teacher mom, I did plenty of that back in the day.
People never.
But are we on? Are we rolling? Okay, we'll just do the old Joe Rogan, just roll right into this thing.
Right.
Welcome back, man. You're the first returning guest for the Real Local People podcast. So, yeah, Danny Struck here. You wrote a book since we talked last. Well, I think you're probably writing it when we talked last, but it's been released since we talked last. So, how's that been? Has it been a good response?
It's been a great response in the the wrestling community, but I think it's more than a wrestling book. It just happens that I'm a wrestling coach. So, I've been at clinics I go to, people will buy it, but it's got Jeffersonville in there and travel stories and really I think coaching mantras for any sport. So just trying to, I'm getting a little older and I can't move my body the same way. And I was like, man, I want to get all my ideas out. And I thought maybe that could help another coach.
Yeah, I thought with the thought that crossed my mind, this is totally random, is that it reminded me of the show Ted Lasso. It took me forever to get into Ted Lasso because I didn't care about soccer at all, right? Yeah. But I loved Ted Lasso, and it did not matter at all that it was soccer. Your book was the same way. It's not that I don't care about wrestling. I just don't have much experience with wrestling, but you could throw any sport into this and use it as a cultural connection and all those things. And you could have done the same thing. So if you don't know much about wrestling, don't let that bother you is my point.
A couple wrestling coaches have said to me, I wish you'd describe the match better. And I was like, I don't remember the match. I just remember the fun part, the story after the adventure. And so if you're reading this, it's not wrestling stories. It just happens to be wrestlers around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You do a great job of tying together this kind of mix of, number one, you're unbelievably well traveled for a kid from Jennings County, Indiana. So, which I wouldn't have known Jennings County till I read the book. So you learn a little more about Danny Struck along the way too. So, but yeah, you do a great job of the humor in the book. There are multiple times as I read it that I literally laughed out loud at certain things. So that keeps you tied into it, and then mix that in with. I love the little bold parts in the book. You always take every time there's a little lesson learned. It's in bold. So as soon as you see bold, you're like, all right, this is the nugget I need to take from it.
That's mine. Oh, you got it all. That's my intention with it. I started off doing was like writing notes at the end of every chapter of what I learned to be a better coach or a teacher or a person. Yeah. And then I was like, nah, I'm going to go back and
it was perfect.
Put them all in there.
The way you did it was perfect because it does, because you can, the little notes in the end, when you put them that way, I've read books like that and I tend to skim them and not really pay much attention to it. But the bold, when you saw it in bold, you were like, okay, this is the pay attention part, lock into this because this was the point of the story. But so you've got decades of time into this at this point. I mean, you've been all kinds of places. What made you decide to throw it into a book?
One, I love education. I'm a teacher. I like going and I like sharing with other educators. So I just started off years ago writing in a Google Doc every time I visited a place, whether it was a stadium, a concert, a comedian, whatever, and so I just had these notes for years. And a friend of mine, Evan Myers, he's my assistant coach. He's written 3 books and he was like, man, you should take those notes and write a story. So, I would say it's 35 years. It was a little bit of when I was growing up, but 35 years of travel stories that was just all notes. And then even, I'm older. I had to go back and look at film. Actual people don't know what film are. You used to pull it out of a camera.
Oh, and I said film, literally.
And because I didn't have the pictures or I didn't have them on a computer and had to be like, where was that? And then I'd have to look at the picture, find Google Images, see where it was. Because there's a lot of foreign words in there that I wouldn't have remembered the name. Sure. And, the writing process took me 2 years, I think.
Yeah. That's incredible. And the funny thing was we didn't even mention either is that there's a lot of like history lessons. Like you could tell you were a history teacher. There's a lot goes back in to talk about, the significance of the places you were and the things that happened there and stuff like that. So you did a really good job of mixing all that together.
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure that the journaling thing and the writing down what you did. I mean, that's huge. I need to do more of that. My wife does it as we travel. I couldn't tell you most of the stories from my trip to Alaska. That was a month ago. So it's hard. That stuff's, I'm sure you've enjoyed through the process of going back and rereading those things and kind of reliving those experiences.
Yeah, that and I'd see a person's name in my notes and that I hadn't talked to in 20 years. So I'd find their contact information. We'd catch up and that would help me on the story. It was a great way to reconnect old friends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So what was your, there are some, and again, once you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. You've had some insane experiences as these things go on. What was your, what would you say was your wildest experience?
Wildest experience. Man, I think I've been detained in like 3 or 4 different countries now. That's always just scary the way a different
with students in tow, no less.
Every time. And it's not anything big, like in Mexico, kids jumping over a fence in Mexico and then getting detained, and there was a McDonald's across the street, but people run up with big machine guns. And
oh wow.
But I'd say we got detained in China because we were there and we don't have visas. We weren't even supposed to be there. We missed a plane to Mongolia. So they're going through our bags and they're like, if you don't get out of this country in 24 hours, you're going to be detained. So I got like a timer going.
Yeah.
And we're in Beijing and a bus pulls out in front of us. Or no, we're on a bus trying to get back from the hotel to the...
I had this exact story in my notes that I was going to bring it up because it was probably my favorite story from the whole thing.
Yeah. And it started off crazy before that because somebody was getting, I'm guessing, deported, and they were handcuffed to the seat next to me on the plane. So I got me, 2 kids that haven't flown in their life, and a guy that's... I said, how's it going? He said, very bad day. That's the only thing we said for a 12-hour flight. And he gets, so that, we're dropping over the Himalayan mountains. Like, I'm leaving my seat. We're dropping so hard in the plane. And I would look at the kids and they're about in tears. And I was like, this is normal. Because they'd never flown. And I was like, this is normal. And which I literally was like writing all my passwords to my insurance and stuff to give my sister. So like if I died and so I land and I send that to her and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, somebody needs this information. But then we're on this bus once we get there, and a local runs out in front of the bus, pretends his motorcycle gets hit, and the bus driver's like, he ain't going to move unless you pay him. And I was like, we got to get on this flight or we're going to jail. And so the military guys, because they're going to be in trouble if they don't get to Korea, they're throwing money out the window.
Yeah.
And the guy's collecting it. And eventually I just go out and pick up his motorcycle over my head and throw it, thinking, okay, now we're going to fight. And he just picks up and goes. And
nobody's ever done this before.
That's how it goes here. And
that's what my thought about it was. I'm reading, I'm like, you got a bus full of wrestlers and military guys, like a bunch of badasses on this bus, and probably just some random average dude on a moped.
There's all Americans on the bus, and the local police were going to side with them, and they just let us go. And
do you feel like the bus driver was involved with this, by the way?
I've always wondered that. He was American, I think.
Yeah.
How I remember it, because it was 15 to 20 years ago. But that's one of the crazier stories.
Right. Yeah. That takes me while you're on Mongolia, the other funny story I thought was hilarious is about the kid waking up in the middle of the night going to get firewood. And you're like, bro, there's not firewood.
Yeah. You'd look, we were just talking about your experience in Alaska and how big things are. Mongolia, you could see something 5 miles away because you could just see so far.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go get wood from a tree. And you couldn't. Yeah. And you couldn't see a tree anywhere. So what they used goat dung or horse dung for a fire. And you're literally yelling at a kid like, there's no wood. You got to go get poop and burn it. And, it was like living in a National Geographic movie, which I'm not making fun of it. It's just a different culture. It was my favorite culture that I've been to probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like incredible. I mean, it's things that most travelers, you talked about a little bit in the book that travel isn't always about comfort. It's about, expanding yourself, learning new things, feeling new cultures. But a lot of people, probably me included, won't go to places like that because it's not comfortable. It's not a vacation to go relax. It's a vacation to expand.
And that's the coolest part about doing it for sport, right? Any sport is that you're picking countries you normally wouldn't go to.
Right.
Like, I never thought I was going to go to Mongolia. You guys went to Jeff High. There's actually a 3% Mongolian population in Jeffersonville.
Oh, really?
And there's less than 1% in the whole world.
Wow.
So we actually have more Mongolians per capita than the world does.
That's insane.
Yeah. So like I had kids in class. Actually, one of our kids in class met me from Jeffersonville, met us there and gave us the tour in Mongolia. But we would have never picked it. Like when I asked my wife, hey, I got a wrestling meet in Guatemala. You want to go? She's like, no. I don't want to go. But like if I say, hey, do you want to go on vacation to the beach? She does. So sport takes you places you normally wouldn't.
When you have a common, especially when you're going to places where you don't even speak the same language, just having something common to share in helps make that a little more comfortable, a little more, easy to go get into these places.
Yeah, that's in the book. I talk about that a lot. Is probably every chapter I'll say that sport is a language, and you find kids don't even need language. The adults are struggling, and they're playing dodgeball. Everybody knows it. They're playing baseball. Everybody knows it. And we're over there struggling on the side. But the kids, sport just makes them talk.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, I think those little bold points in the book were one of my favorite parts. So that and the humor for me was it's like I said, I literally laughed out loud a few times. But these bold points of these kind of lessons that are taught in the book, of those, what do you think your favorite, or you think most important lesson that kind of applies to both coaching and to life?
I'd say the overall theme of the book is, on there it says experience the world through wrestling. Experience the world through sport. It's the greatest way, I think, to go visit places. I go on vacations, and I don't know if I experience everything. Like in Mongolia, we get up and we brush our teeth in a well together. Yeah. And that's an experience. Or, finding out that a town in a third world country, the only clothes they have are the ones we ship them.
Right.
That's to me an experience. And the more you travel the world, the more you learn the world is our home.
Sure.
So, we talk about that a lot with our wrestlers or the kids that go on trips with us, is the world is our home. And I know personally, I don't feel lost ever now. Like, in the book, I think I said, maybe I never said, the first time I ever went away from my parents in 4th grade, I made it 2 nights. I cried until they came and got me. Yeah. So going from that to leaving 60 days at a time overseas is, for me, wasn't natural.
Yeah.
But now the world's my home. Like, I know in almost any country I can call up a coach, and people are people. They're just going to come help you.
Right.
You don't need to feel helpless.
It kind of reminded me of one of the things you talked about in the book, which is kind of topical today, was your experience with the Iranians.
Yeah.
And, I think we as Americans, and probably them as Iranians, look at America in a certain way too, because of the way our governments handle themselves or the way they do. But you don't realize within those countries are just people, and they were great to you, and they helped you out in some significant ways. And I think people probably tend to pass judgment on different cultures, different places, things like that, without knowing, the real people in those situations.
Yeah. So I've been to Turkey twice, and, it's a Muslim country, and we hear so many negative things in our press about that. And even the first time I ever went there, they took us to it was like a room in the Pentagon because some things were happening in the world, and we had to go through anti-terrorist training. But then you get there, and I start reading, and I find out that in every world war and in almost every conflict, Turkey is like our biggest ally. Right. And just because the word Muslims there, we're scared. But Turkey's like, go USA.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the
just
tournament,
the anti-terrorist class alone probably would have been enough to turn everybody else around.
Oh, yeah.
From, we got to go through this.
The kids that were sent in, if my kid was going on a tour and you had to do an anti-terrorist thing before it, it was crazy.
I give a lot of credit to some of these parents too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, at that level, that was a world championship. So they, that's their livelihood at that point, kind of a pro athlete. But the Iran thing that you're speaking of, that guy won a gold medal, but he literally took the shirt off his back and wanted to trade shirts. And When you find in wrestling that when Iran and USA are wrestling, like there's no boos. It's the biggest cheers. It's the loudest. And if America is wrestling some other country, Iran is cheering. And if Iran is wrestling another country, America's cheering. Because they're so, wrestling's the number one sport in Iran, and America's so good at it.
Right.
They're just cheering. Even, they're heroes to them.
Yeah.
And they know our names, people watching won't know, but like Kurt Angle was, the WWE guy was actually a real wrestler at one point, and he said that in his book. And I noticed that he said in his book that in Iran you just said you wrestled, and they'll do anything. Like the taxi driver won't even charge you because you wrestle. And when we were in Turkey, I found the same thing.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Just kind of as you talked about Kurt Angle, I was kind of thinking through like some of these other people you have met. You met Roddy Piper and several other people, but has the expanse of the UFC and mixed martial arts, has that made a difference in your sport in terms of like just popularity, being able to get kids to do it more and train towards that? Because I know wrestling, obviously UFC's and mixed martial arts is more than just wrestling, but I know a lot of really good mixed martial artists are based in wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I've met a number of UFC champs through it, or like had them on a trip when they were in middle school, and 10 years later they're UFC champ.
Right.
I've met, I'm going blank, but I've probably met 10 UFC champs because of wrestling.
Right.
They'll be at a lot of the wrestling events because they're still fans and they'll come watch. But even like in the classroom, if I'm asking a kid to wrestle, a lot of times they'll say, no, I do jiu-jitsu, or no, I'm going to box because I want to be a UFC fighter.
Sure.
And I'll just start listing all the people that are champs. And they're like, I didn't know that. And I'll say, yeah, wrestling's just UFC. And
if you're going to box, you need to be able to avoid a takedown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of wrestling.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like I just try to promote, fighting or anything, but as a sport, it's been a super good recruiter for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminded me of one of the funnier moments in the book for me, because I connected to it because I knew the guy. But Spud, Jake Gibson, in the story about the I went to school with Jake since elementary school, so I knew him well. So when I heard that whole story, not knowing that was him, and I'll let you tell the story because it is funny. But But yeah, I didn't know that's who you were talking about. Then it got to the age that it was Jake Gibson. I was like, that whole story just made more sense to me. I was like, that's hilarious.
That was one I had to rewrite a bunch because I never explained why Spud.
Right.
Jake, if you meet him now, he's
if you know Jake, you know why Spud.
Police slash firefighter. Awesome dude,
freaking
but
monster
awesome
these
monster
days.
of an athlete. And I mean, Jake I've had him come into my weightlifting classes and put 405 on the bar and rep it out 20 times. And kids it blows their mind.
Yeah.
But he, as a sophomore and junior in high school, was kind of a short, fat kid.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours, did Rob Ferguson go to school with you guys? Or
I don't think
he's a River Valley teacher. He was reading the book and was like, I cannot believe you're just talking trash about this guy. And I'm like, wait till the end of the chapter. Turkey was the first country I ever had come train with Jeffersonville, like my second or third year teaching here. And the world champion, his name was Ishmael, comes and he's like you would imagine a big Turk, hairy back, like massive.
And how old was he? Like 16?
16, the world champ. And we in Jeffersonville, I got Jake Gibson, Spud, who's a second-year wrestler, and his record is 3-33. 3 wins, 33 losses. Those 3 wins were probably because nobody showed up, and Jake wasn't very good. And ironically, today in class, this kid comes up and he goes, "My uncle says he knows you." And I was like, "Who's your uncle?" And he said, "David Sandlin of Floyd Central." That's the guy in there.
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Read this chapter." And he reads, and he's like, "He's told me that." So David Sandlin was a kid, weighed about 200 pounds from Floyd Central. And we had Floyd come and Jeff come to have 2 matches for each Turkish kid. And the Ishmael comes out and he wanted to just annihilate people. He's the world champ. And he picks him up like you'd see WWE and he power bombs him 5 seconds into the match. And we have to cart him off in an ambulance. And he's okay today. But and so Jake starts just crying. Yeah. And his mom's coming up and his dad's coming up, cussing me, and they're great people. But you better not put my kid on that mat. And Jake's like, I don't want to do it either, Jake. And I'm scared. I'm only like 25 at this time, and scared I'm going to kill a kid. So Jake goes out there. He's warming up, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to do it, coach." And I'm like, "I don't want you to." I mean, it's like Rocky fighting Ivan Drago, and I'm like, "I don't want you to," And he's like, "I'm gonna." And I said, "Okay, if you feel uncomfortable, you just fall down." And so he goes out there. They shake hands, and he falls down. And Ishmael gets real mad, like beating his chest, and the referee says, "Get up." They start to wrestle again. Jake just falls down. Yeah. On the third time, they make Ishmael just put his hand on him, like WWE style, and pin him. And, then afterwards, we're like, we're so proud of you, Jake. Jake, so next year, goes on to be 33-3.
Yeah.
And those kind of experiences just make kids.
So you think that drove him?
One of the maybe not that moment, but kids that are not willing to quit, because a lot of kids, if they were 3-33, would quit. They're either going to quit, or they're going to, when we do hard things, we end up thriving. And Jake went through a lot of hard things, and that kid was hard. Yeah. And when you compete against somebody of that caliber, it changes you. You can't, we say, what do I say to my wrestlers? That is what we can be. So anytime a kid loses like that, I say that is what you can be. So he knew how that felt. And the very next year, he was 33-3, and today is
something clicked in him, because I can tell you as a like I said, I've known him for a really long time, but I wasn't around him every day, and it was all of a sudden, seemingly overnight, he went from, like you said, the short big kid that was like, and then all of a sudden you like, oh my God, I don't want to pass him in a dark alley. You know what I mean?
I tell parents in class when they say, "What's the best weightlifting?" I'll say puberty. Yeah. And Jake, Jake finally became a man, and is a big man.
Yeah, he really did. What was your if you had to pick one trip that you do all over again, what would it be?
Oh, do again? Turkey and Mongolia. I know there's 30 other countries in this book, so I keep bringing up Turkey and Mongolia. But Turkey, because their coach was exactly the type of coach I want for kids. He in his club, he had 2 world champions, but he also had kids with learning disabilities. And I think a lot of times when we think of other countries, we think they just let those guys go by the wayside.
Right.
And the coach was a world champ. He spent most of his time with the kids that had needs. Yeah. And he couldn't speak English. I was younger than him at the time. I was 25. He'd call me Baby Rocky when we'd go running. And that was my name to him. And he was just a good person. And through our needing a translator talks, but we would get very deep. And that was really the purposes is when I take a Jeffersonville trip somewhere, the purpose is for learning, not winning world titles. And we don't even mess with that when it's just Jeff. Yeah. We just train and learn. And what I learned from him is he said, we are the same. I'm not trying to get biblical here, but, he was born in a country that has, they study Islam in school. Yeah. And so there was no way he was going to have the Christian concept. But he said, we're the same. We want to be good, and we want to be good to others so that our God favors us. And ever since then, I was like, oh, these people want to be good, and they want to be good to others. Sure. I'm speaking Buddhist, anywhere in the world I've found that. And then Mongolia was the same way, but they had nothing. It's a third world country. Yeah. It's the least densely populated country in the world. So if you're off at a house, they don't have electricity or running water. And that was very good for me to, do hard things. Yeah. At the end of the 12 days or whatever, like I didn't need electricity, and I didn't need my phone, and I didn't need all this stuff. Right. I just needed to brush my teeth with some little kids, and it was like a wonderful experience.
Right. Yeah, those are incredible experiences. I'm a big believer. I may not put it into practice as much as I should, but doing hard things is an important thing for us. It kind of recalibrates us, because I think we live in a time when, a lot of people struggle with anxiety and things, and I think that's a big reason why is because we have it too easy. Yeah. Anxiety is something that's built into us. It was built into cavemen to be scared of bears when they're supposed to be. And now what do we got? What do we really got to be scared of or to be nervous about? We got to put our mind to the test and to do, to push ourselves a little bit. So I think that's huge, and it's an awesome lesson that you teach to your wrestlers.
Yeah, they, very few countries have air conditioning, and they don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, and we lived millions of years without electricity or without air conditioning, and that one little thing, just depriving yourself of something, or some countries don't eat as much sugar, and suddenly you're having a sugar fit. Yeah, and by the end you're like, I don't even need sugar.
Right.
It just, those little differences really just grow you as a person.
Yeah. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I had just a couple more things. Number
Yep.
one, what's somebody who reads your book, what's one thing you'd want them to come away with from it?
It's written from a coach's perspective, so I kind of hope coaches read it and gain some better ways of dealing with kids. I tell my coaches all the time, if we don't take the time to show kids the right way, someone with more time will show them the wrong. And my whole book is meant to show coaches the right way to treat kids. But anybody else reading it, one of my goals is to do stand-up comedy. This might not be the funniest podcast ever, but and my wife.
The book, I think you could.
So I hope like a lot of it's a comedy with then the heartfelt moments.
Yeah.
It's not all jokes, but it's 90% jokes. So honestly, I don't know if you know the comedian Greg Warren.
Yeah.
When I started actually writing, he kept being like, "Oh, if you're going to go on stage, you got to write."
Yeah.
So I have a whole list on my phone of the funniest coaching stories because I feel like a comedian that coached, everybody's played a sport, it'll go well.
Well, when you think about it, that's what comedians are, right? They just pay a little closer attention to their surroundings than what normal people do, and pick up these little things that you might not even think about and turn it into an hour comedy routine.
So I hope people are smiling when they read it. I hope they're laughing when they read it. Maybe cry at the couple times in there that something super happy happens. But I think a coaching perspective could help them do better for kids. I think for just a travel fan, a history fan, a comedy fan, it's kind of a historical comedy.
Yeah. Well, I promise you, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me. Picked up the book because you're coming on the podcast and because I know you, of course. But I think anybody should pick up this book because it does all those things that you're saying. Like I said, I read a lot, and it's not very often I'm laughing out loud at a book I'm reading, but I did. It's not very often I'm crying, and I'm not going to say I was boohoo crying, but there's a couple times you well up a little bit. Like you said, some happy things that happen and cool lessons that come through. I think you're really good at picking those things up, and I think you're a good writer. I mean, it's just especially for your first book. That's what I was asking you. I feel like I have some experiences I could write about. I don't know that I could get them on paper the way you do. So you've done a really good job.
Just start going. If anybody wanted to do it, I'd just start. I would in the summers. I would mostly write after morning weightlifting. I'd just during the day before I'd kind of write some notes or look at my old notes, and then I'd write for an hour. And when I say 2 years, it was maybe an hour a day for 2 years. And I think it made me grow a lot. It made me connect with a lot more people. So I'd encourage anybody to start at least journaling.
Yeah.
It really helps your brain.
Yeah, you got to do it to get better at it. That makes sense for sure. You got any plans for any more books?
The next one, it'll be more like coaching philosophy, but it's going to be through the funniest stories that I've had at Jeff. I don't know, a kid in a bacon suit chasing a goose. I'm looking at Faith over there, her to-be husband, or just stories like that. Kids
doesn't surprise me at all.
A kid with his cell phone in his singlet, and his phone's ringing, just stuff like that. But I want it to be more Jeffersonville oriented. It might not sell as many, but it'll mean more to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, guys, like I said, I can't recommend it enough. It was a great read. Pick it up on Amazon is where I got it from. Yep. I don't know if there's other ways to get it or not.
That's the fastest way. Yeah. I don't even own a copy because ordering an author copy takes like a month.
Really?
But ordering one yourself takes 2 days. So it's I didn't even have one to bring you guys.
Yeah. Well, I've got one, and I'm gonna have you sign it before we leave because, like I said, I think it's you've done a really good job with it. So if you're watching, check it out. Check out Danny. He's a great guy. Start second conversation with him. You're so easy to talk to because you got such great experiences. So pick it up. I think that's about it for now. But you guys know my spiel. We also sell real estate. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in the area, check us out and stay tuned for more podcasts to come. We're going to try to do this every other week going forward and keep more people. So if you know anybody I should talk to, let me know. And thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.